In today's podcast, we have a special guest by the name of Reese. She joins us in discussing everything from how to overcome self-doubt, how to overcome the fear of making mistakes. We discuss how adversity can transform our mind for the better, how actually going through adversity makes us stronger and better. We discuss the common challenge that a lot of athletes are faced with, which is the double bind, which is if I play, I'm faced with all this anxiety and pressure and it's so stressful. But if I quit, I'm quitting something I love, so I can't win. So we dive into that and how we can overcome that. We discuss the power of letting yourself be a fallible player, letting yourself be an imperfect player, and how that actually can enhance your game and make you a better player. And the beauty of these interviews with younger athletes that are up and coming is it gives the younger players, so the younger players from 10 to 12 to 14, it gives them an in-between perspective of the journey. So they're not just hearing from the professionals and what their perspective is, because there's a big gap between a 10, 12, 14-year-old and a professional. So I think it's nice to hear from the perspective of an up-and-coming 17-year-old or 16-year-old, so they can have the recognition that they're not far off that and they're still doing really well. And just like all the professionals dealt with these things when they were 17, they dealt with the overcoming fear of making mistakes. They dealt with self-doubt and things like that. So it's to help the young players realize they're not the only ones going through these sorts of things, and also give them some powerful tips on how they can overcome this too. So I really hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed interviewing Reese. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Sorry about the mishaps with the Wi-Fi and all that. We're here now. Good to have you on, Reese. And just for I suppose for the listeners, Reese and I have worked together for a little while on some mindset stuff, and Reese has been an incredible client. She's an incredible athlete, an incredible person, and I'm super proud to say I've worked with her and done a bit of and to be able to even support her a little bit too. So that's been cool. And today is the first time Jen's met Reese, and
I can't wait to dive into this podcast, learn more about you, get an even better sense. Luke's, like I've said, Luke has shared so many amazing things about you, but I'd love to hear more about just like how you think about your experience as a student athlete, like how your mind works. Yeah,
we're curious about what is your biggest inspiration in life, Reese?
I would say my grandma, because she's very direct and she doesn't let anyone else make decisions for her or tell her she can't do something. And she's very self dependent. And so I would say her.
Right. So she's like real independent and strong, sounds like strong-willed.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. How's that rubbed off on you, do you think?
I think it's rubbed off positively, but then my mom isn't as like that, so it's kind of unbalanced. But
yeah, you got a bit.
I think it's good.
Cool.
Yeah, you get you get to see both modeled to you in different situations, and then you get to pick and choose like what you really resonate with most in different parts of your life. I love that.
Cool. Awesome. And that's interesting because and that sort of leads into I'm curious how that connects in with your in with the next question, which is what do you feel drives you, motivates you to be as excellent as you can be in soccer? Because you're quite an excellent athlete. I've worked with quite a lot of athletes now, and your approach to athletics is a very excellent approach, and I'm very interested in learning about that. So what motivates you to be so excellent in soccer?
I think I'm super competitive, so that's just one personality trait that makes me just want to be better like every single day. And it's not like a lot better every day, but it's like a little bit, and then it adds up. And then also, I would say just kind of like another person that drives me is my dad, because he's super like motivational and like emphasizes hard work. And so it's like I kind of want to do all this for me, but also like for him, kind of.
Yeah. And that interests me because so would you say you would be who you are and as excellent as you are without without the without that, like your grandma and your dad's work ethic and their values of hard work and excellence, has that inspired you to be the same way? Or
Yeah, I don't think I'd be like in this position if they weren't how they are or they weren't like them, because I just think it's been like a giant influence. And so yeah, I definitely would not be the same person.
yeah. Any questions on that?
I love what you said right there about being a giant influence, because whether, speaking from my own personal experience, whether I realized it or not, the adults, the friends, the teammates around me, the people who I was, looking up to, on, the national team or people on social media, we are all being influenced all the time, whether we realize it or not. And so it's such like such a beautiful thing that you have such great influences in your life, who are helping to guide you to where you want to go.
And for those without as many of them influences, what would you say for them to do? What could they actively do differently?
Yeah, like in my experience, I found myself looking for and seeking people who I really resonated with, who I looked up to in different areas. So like, I mean, I really resonate with high levels of excellence, regardless of, what area it's in. So like excellent dancers, or like really amazing public speakers, people who can motivate other people. And then also in more recently, where I'm at in my life right now, like I really am resonating with like women who embody just this really powerful feminine, this really powerful, radiant feminine force that's also nurturing. And so I've been really seeking and resonating with those influences. Yeah. And then of course, the people who I don't resonate with as much, just, don't follow them. I unfollow them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good that's a good teaching. Yeah. Awesome. And do you have any dreams, like dream soccer goals, Reese?
Well, I want to play D1 soccer. That's a big soccer goal. And then in life, I haven't really like thought about a big like overarching dream, but I just want to like graduate college. That's like kind of the next thing.
Yeah. So you want to play D1 soccer at college, and you want to graduate college. Yep. And any specific college that you're hoping to get into, or just colleges that would be top there for you?
I don't, not really. I think I'd kind of just have to see like where I still have to do some research. I'm not like completely set on anything yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. Do you have a sense of like how you want to feel at this, the university you'll end up at, or what sorts of things are important to you when you do your research, like what you're going to be looking for? Do you know about that at this stage, or maybe not? That's okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna look for like smaller classes and kind of smaller schools, because I've always been at like big schools and I like when it's smaller, so then I feel more connected to like the school. But that's kind of the biggest like factor I've thought about.
Cool.
I love that.
Cool. And to bit of a radical transition, in one of the questions we ask just out of interest, what's something funny, awesome, or unusual you've done or experienced? And you said you climbed a waterfall about 50 and 70 foot high. I'm hoping it was with a rope, or was that with
No, it was so
what?
scary. It was this like waterfall off this hike, and I was with my friend and her mom was in her mom like did everything. She was in the army. She's a veteran. She like was a nurse or a doctor, and she was like, "Oh, we can climb this. Like, I used to do this all the time." I was like, "Okay," and so we climbed up, and then we climbed down, and it was really scary, but it was fun. Like, kind of after.
What was it like? Was it on an angle, or was it like straight up? What?
Not straight up, but it was like a little bit of an angle, but not that much. There was like some footholds, but it was like you climbed up, and she was just telling us to stay like super close to the rock, and she was like, "Don't stand up, like just like slide up." And I was like, "Okay."
Holy smokes.
So the question is, would you do it again?
Um, I don't know. Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is, do your parents know about this? Because they probably won't let you hang out with that mum.
Well, also the other funny thing is I was like 12 or like
Wow.
11 or 12. But I was super fit back then because I did a lot of gymnastics, but it was okay.
Yeah.
Right. And you did gymnastics. Jen used to do gymnastics as well. And funny enough, both of you share the same strength, which is your speed in soccer. How do you think, I suppose gymnastics quite a plyometric, like fast twitch sport. How do you think plyometrics had an impact on your soccer?
I think just training like those like quick, like explosive like muscles or like movements helped a lot because there's like you can be strong, but that doesn't necessarily mean like you're fast. So you need to train like the specific things to be a faster player.
Did you notice that too?
So speaking specifically now back to soccer and like training specific things to become faster in soccer.
First off, I want to know how did gymnastics make a difference for you for your soccer? Did it transfer across?
Massively, yeah.
In what way?
Well, I would say, I mean, both my parents were, my dad was a great athlete. My mom was, a really good athlete in what she did. She didn't do as much as my dad did in terms of like how much she played. So in that way, like I would say I had good genes, but I also grew up in a family where we were very active, always, out in nature or gardening or playing sports. Right. And then so going and doing gymnastics, I think my parents actually originally put me in dance, and I was too active and just too much for the dance people. So they were like, put her in gymnastics. And then I think that just helped me to, just expand on, how active I already was. And that helped me with that explosiveness, and that speed and that body awareness too, like that core strength. I mean, you're on the bars, being able to like do your whole routine on the bars, on the balance beam, like the floor, the vault. I mean, it's, in my personal opinion, I think it really did set me ahead, because, I mean, if you're playing against a soccer player who hasn't done that, who has the exact same level of current skill, and then a person who has done that, I mean, you
get a whole different level of conditioning.
Yeah.
And
trust in your body, knowledge of your body, body awareness.
And in that, the speed of both Reese and yourself, and Reese just mentioned how to increase your speed as an athlete, as a soccer player. And I know there's a lot of soccer players out there that would benefit and love more speed. And I know Reese just said the plyometrics and doing not just strength, not just weights, but doing fast movements like you did in gymnastics. Did you find the same for your speed how to develop your speed?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did some of it here and there. It wasn't like something that I consistently did every single week at a certain point. But I definitely think that's important and very valuable. Yeah. And especially once I started doing more of it, like in college, I definitely noticed the benefit. It's much easier to get up into that max speed zone and that explosive zone once you've trained it. It's not like this hard effort in practices or games because you've been there.
Yeah.
Recently. Yeah. Is that your experience too? Or
Yeah. That's super similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And what is having that speed? Does that does it give you that? Obviously, it gives you a massive advantage. Does it give you extra confidence having that extra speed?
Definitely. Because when there's like a ball and you're like, oh, I'm faster than her, then it's just like a relief kind of. So you're just like, all I have to do is run and I'm going to get there and I'm going to like win the ball. So it's, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a perfect example for people out there wanting to increase their confidence. Well, you can do the little things like increase your speed, work to increase your speed, because that's not static. You can train that with the plyometrics, with the track work, with and you can build your confidence through building your skills and your strengths.
Absolutely. And I would add to that, there was a point in my life when I started eating completely differently. This was before I went and got more education and to become a certified health coach and among other things. And the way I was eating, I believe, again, this is only my personal experience, but I think it greatly impacted my explosiveness. And I didn't feel like the same type of player. And I didn't realize it at the time, but after the fact, once I went back to doing what I was doing, I noticed that my explosiveness returned.
How are you eating that reduced you?
At the time, it was when I decided to go plant-based and I didn't know what I was doing. So I cut out meat, I cut out dairy, I cut out I think like even like grains too. And I was trying to figure out what was going on with my body. I had a lot of inflammation symptoms. And so without really any education, I was just trying things. And in my experience, I think it's really important to be well educated when you're going to do plant-based. I think it's really important to work with a professional
to make sure you get
the nutrients you need. Yeah.
What about your nutrition? Have you played around with your nutrition at all? Or have you kind of just done the usual thing?
I kind of just stick to the same thing because it works. We've done through our club, they do these nutrition nights where this professional comes in and talks about what we should be eating before games, after games, or just like throughout, like when we're living. And so that's been super helpful. But I think, it's always kind of stayed the same. It was worse when I was younger, but I've gotten more like conscientious about what I'm eating. So
yes. And I think there's a certain point in I think most athletes' lives where they have to look at their nutrition, because it is a tool. It's a powerful tool, and it can either support the success of your body and brain, or it can take away from that. And I think that's there's a lot of people that haven't yet looked at what they're eating and haven't taken that step, but it doesn't have to be a big one, but I think it's pretty important.
Yeah, gradually over time.
It's what we fuel our body with. So it's and I'm interested in, I always ask this question of a lot of people, but because I am a big believer that our adversities that we face in life can really often make us not just make us realize what we're capable of. Like I think there's a quote from Fight Club that says, you don't know who you are until you've been in a fight. And so it's like, you don't know who you are until you really faced adversity. So in that way, it's good to build your confidence. Adversity is good for confidence, especially being able to move through it. But one thing is we learn a lot from adversity. And a question I want to ask you is, what has been a failure or adversity that you've faced that's actually been a blessing to you in the long run? In hindsight, you look back and that was a blessing.
Yeah. Earlier in the year, kind of, I hurt my knee really badly, and it was like just continued to get worse because I thought it was healing and I kept playing on it. And then there was a point where I was out for like a month or so because I had just like strained it so hard, and kind of like that really sucked at the time because I was so scared I was going to get behind, and like I wasn't going to be good anymore when I went back, and my speed wasn't going to be the same. But I think that time was a blessing because I was able to like look at my mindset and realize that it was not how I wanted it to be. And it was kind of like the first time I actually thought about like what I was thinking inside my mind that was like impacting my soccer instead of like how my skill was impacting soccer. And also I was able to develop more of a technical side of the game because I was watching soccer and I was watching my club team still play soccer and I was watching more college soccer. So yeah.
All right. Awesome. And did that injury happen? What do you think? Did that just was that a random injury, or do you think that happened because of a mindset issue that you had, or stress, or was it just kind of a random accident?
Well, I remember like right when I heard it, it was because my because my coach was like not yelling at me, but kind of yelling at me because I like wasn't in the right spot. So then I like ran super hard to get the ball, and she like did a move and I got the ball, but then she came back and my knee like just couldn't handle like all the movement. And then I played the rest of the game on it, and yeah, it was like that moment.
Okay. And you speak of the mental effect it had on you, and we know, well, you've come and worked with me, and we know you've experienced adversity in the mental side of soccer, not just the injury, but in the mental side of soccer. Can you tell us a little about your experience of facing adversity in the mental side of soccer? Because I think it's valuable for other girls, other young players in general, to hear that they're not the only ones that are experiencing this, going through this, and like people like yourself and Jen, myself in my yeah.
Well, it was kind of like around the time I hurt my knee, but maybe a little before that. I was just super like didn't want to play soccer. I didn't like it anymore because I would like cry before every practice and every game and after everything. And I had no motivation to do it at all. And I was just super, like, so hard on myself. And nothing I did was like good enough for me because I didn't think it was good enough for like anyone else. And when we go to showcases, I was just so hard on myself because I was like, you're not good enough to play college soccer. Like, no one's looking at you. Like, yeah, so it was just not good.
Yeah, you mentioned you'd really get on yourself, like get on yourself, like get angry at yourself, or just frustrated at yourself a lot after during practices and games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And just got to the point where it wasn't fun anymore. And this is a common thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Thing. And did you ever go through a stage where you're just like so hard on yourself that you just wanted to quit? Like,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's maybe a part of the ambitious mind of a young player, and then it gets so strong of trying to get better and better that you're not counting the good things anymore, and you just get to the point where it's just all like, that's not good. It's like whatever you focus on grows, and if you're constantly focused on what's not good, and no counting the good, eventually that'll grow. It's just all I see is the bad. All I see is the bad.
And it's like it feels fixed, like it's forever. And you're not
feel like that, yeah.
And it's like all of my energy would be going toward like that rather than like, okay, well, what can I do? What can I control? And it sounds like was that part of your process of shifting your mindset when you Because like, what was that point when you started to realize, okay, I've got to do something different. This isn't working.
Yeah, it was kind of like in the summer, I think. Sorry, I have like an eyelash in my eye. I don't know.
No worries. Feel free
But
to get it out.
um it's good now. But I would say, yeah, I kind of just was like, this isn't working anymore. Like I do, because I was thinking about when I was thinking about quitting soccer, it was like I was seriously thinking about it, but then I had to think about the like what would come after, like what was I gonna do, what was I gonna do in college, like, and so then I was like, no, I need to pick something because I don't want to like live the rest of my life without like soccer in it. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like a must. I must figure this out
mhm,
at all costs,
mhm.
and something has to change. So what is that? And then you went to your mindset as one of the things.
I think it was, well, at first it was kind of unhealthy because I was like, oh, well, if I get better, like if I think I'm better, then I won't be this hard on myself. But then in getting better, I was still hard on myself because I was like, nothing's going to change if I'm not. Yeah. So it was like a cycle. And then my mom actually was like, she was talking about you, Jen, and she was like, this like seems really helpful. Like, do you want to try this? And I was like, didn't really think it was going to work. I was like, okay, like, I guess so. I'll do anything. And it did help a lot. So then I was like, that's what I needed to fix. Sawyer. Sawyer, how can you play
Great.
it?
Sawyer, what the heck? We're on an important Zoom call.
Siblings trying to join in the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm so glad that it's helped you, and it's helped you to develop tools that you didn't have before. And I totally get it when you feel like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't even think it will, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And in my personal experience, I found that like that's the mindset and the approach that helps you to remain unstoppable in your life. And like even like speaking that and feeling that gives me chills because there are a lot of things that we can't control. There is a lot of adversity that we're going to experience in our lives. That's going to be a constant. But if we maintain that approach, like I'll do whatever it takes, and I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep asking for help, and I'm going to give this thing a try, even though I don't fully know if it'll work. Like I really celebrate you for that a lot.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I've seen this a couple of times or several times now. So you loved soccer, right? You did love it. And so on one hand, you really loved it, but you had all this anxiety about it. You were really hard on yourself about it. And there was just so much negative self-talk, and you're so tough on yourself to the point to where you didn't want to play it. And so it's all that stuff that's making it not enjoyable anymore, making this thing that you do love not enjoyable anymore. And it puts you in what we call a double bind, which is you don't want to play because it's too painful to play, it's too anxious, but you don't want to not play because it's something you love. So you're in this thing of both choices hurt and I don't know what to do. And that's why it's so frustrating mentally, and it can really bring you into a depression because you're stuck in this thing. I can't win. I'm in a bind. If I quit, I feel I'm going to feel terrible. I don't know what to do. It's the thing I love. But if I play, I have to keep going through this stuff, and I'm so hard on myself, and I don't know what to do. And I bring that up because I want to. This happens a lot, and there might be someone watching that's going through the same thing. The question I always ask is, if you could get rid of the anxiety and the being hard on yourself and begin to enjoy the game again, would you keep playing? And the answer is always yes, because and get back to why we actually play the game and clear that stuff out. So if someone here is watching that, I would say, if you're going through that, then ask yourself that question. If I could get rid of this stuff and just enjoy the game again, would I play? Then there is a path for you out. You're not just stuck in that bind. There is a path. So get the support, get the help, and clear that stuff away, and start playing again in the way that you started doing it for the reason you wanted to do it in the first place, for fun. And yeah,
For sure. And maybe some people will answer no. They'll be like, actually, wait, if I removed, the anxiety or what's the challenges right now or the hard things, if I removed that, I actually wouldn't want to play anymore. And it's like, great. That's so important to, to realize too. Like, what would you rather be doing? Because our time is so precious.
Yeah. On the subject of the mental side of things and the mindset, we're interested in knowing what are been some of the most beneficial things that you've learned that have helped you transform your mindset to enhance your mindset and your mental game.
I would say the biggest thing is like how mistakes are just like tiny little moments in like your big, like however long you play soccer. So making mistakes is like you can learn from it and grow. And then like mistakes I made a week ago, I don't remember now because they're not important, because I became a better player because of them. So I don't have to like focus on them anymore.
So you're taking, and that's such a common thing. The fear of making mistakes is such a common thing, but learning how to take the lessons from mistakes and learning how to let it go in the span of your career. A little mistake is such a tiny little clip, and it's just like what's next. And one thing I heard you say a few weeks ago was that you now make a mistake and you're just like, it's just one play. It's just one play. Where in the past, and I know a lot of people do it, it's like I make a mistake and they think about it the whole game. It's like this, it's the whole, I let the whole team down, all this stuff. It's like, and now it's just one play. That's such a powerful thing I think people could take away. It's just one play.
Yeah, exactly.
On to the next. Yeah, so good.
And I suppose, and you, I would love your thoughts on this. If a player is thinking that, or a person is thinking that,
thinking what?
Thinking that, oh, this play, thinking about a play for the rest of the game, and right, does that presuppose does that imply that they're thinking they need to be perfect? Like, I can't have made that mistake. That's not allowed.
Yeah. The lack of permission to make mistakes. Yeah. That comes into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of it.
The permission to be fallible, to be where you are right now, to be imperfect, because you always are imperfect.
Yeah.
But to be perfectly imperfect right now.
And I say it all the time to to my clients. It's like, think of your greatest hero in your sport, in your soccer, and then, or the best player in the world. Do they make mistakes? And of course they do. And it's funny that we don't bat an eyelid at them making a mistake, but we think we have to be perfect. It's like they're the best in the world. If they're making mistakes, you can too. So that's where we get to the being so tough on ourselves that it just becomes very unresourceful. Having a high standard is a fantastic thing, and that's what I really respect about you, Reese. The standard that you hold as a young athlete and as a young person in general. But when it gets to that level to where you're so hard on yourself that it's impossible to maintain that standard, it's impossible standards is what I call it. It's like you're just asking for trouble there. So it's good to have the high standard, but relax a little bit, let yourself learn and have that time. So and I know that attitude can let a bunch of again, what we focus on, even though you're a really good player, it's still that attitude started bringing in another attitude of self-doubt and that And that's, I know that's a common one, and I'm curious about what's your advice for someone who is facing or trying to overcome self-doubt.
I think what I had to do was kind of realize that I had to like approve myself. And, like
Improve yourself.
I couldn't look to coaches or other players or like family even really to like approve me.
Approve. Yes.
Um so it was kind of like the self-acceptance first, and then like I could allow other people to like make comments about how I played. Kind of.
So like, is what you're saying, you realized you needed to validate yourself first? Like, I am good enough, or, I played, up to my standards, or I'm okay with how I just did here. And then other people could then, like, that's your foundation. And then other people
could say any things, but I had like, if other people had bad things to say, I had like the core, like, no, that was good. Like I liked that. I liked how I did that. So
yeah. So it sounds like you took on an inner authority, is what we call it. So there's like, we can look outside for our authority and to tell us what the truth is, which is what we do as young kids. We look at the parents and things to tell us what's right or wrong and whatever. We get to a point to when we can develop an inner authority, which you had to do because so many of our coaches and parents and things, and I had this as well with parents, is like, they often, I think they're very much trying to help us, but they're constantly pointing out the things that you could do better, could do this better, could do this. And it's constantly discounting. It's like, they're not counting the things that you did good. They just they probably think, oh, they know that, but this will get you better. This will get you better. It's really important to count the good things. Yeah. Even in the worst game you ever play, there's still plenty of good things to celebrate and to count. And it sounds like your inner authority said, yeah, I'll take that criticism from you. I'll take that feedback, but I know I did this and this good, and I'm going to let myself feel good about that. And I'll take that feedback and make myself a little bit better if I think it's the truth. And that's a powerful part to transforming your mindset. Inner authority. Really good.
Got so much wisdom. I'm impressed.
Yeah. And on the fear of mistakes, is there anything else you would add to if you're trying to help someone overcome that?
Well, I think the hard thing for me when we were talking about like getting rid of the fear of mistakes was, I was like, that's so cliche. Like everyone says like wipe away your mistakes, but like I felt like I couldn't really do that. But I think the biggest thing was like realizing how small mistakes are. Like, so you touch the ball the wrong way. Like that's 0.0001 seconds, like out of your whole, like all the years you play soccer. And that was the biggest thing that like grounded me, I think, because it was just like a fact. Like a mistake does not matter. Like that is just the whole truth. And so I guess that's like the biggest thing, because the other things are they're harder to kind of wire your brain to think after, but after you realize how small it is, then you can start being like, oh, I'm just going to learn from it and it doesn't matter and I'll throw it away. It's kind of hard. It was harder for me to do it the other way. Like just say it doesn't matter first, because then I was like, well, why doesn't it matter? But
yeah, it wasn't grounded in a fact for you. So you were like, well, it does matter because I should be better than this, right? That's so good. You really brought it down. You chunked it down to like a real fact that allowed you to accept that as the truth. Yeah, really good. So, and even you said over the whole span of your career, one mistake is just like a tiny little fraction. And even when you think about it, over the span of a game, even if you make 10 mistakes, there's still, what's a mistake? Like 10 opportunities out, maybe 10 mistakes is quite a lot of opportunities out of one game. I don't know. I don't play soccer, but what do you think?
Well, I suppose it depends. I mean, a couple of things come to mind. So it's like, if you make 10 mistakes, but you make 20, 50, 100, whatever, awesome plays. If you make 10 mistakes and you score 2 goals and have an assist, or like, outside of those mistakes, have an excellent, let's say you're like a distributing midfielder, like you have an excellent, I'm blanking on the word I'm looking for. Your percentage for connecting passes is like excellent outside of that. Heck yeah, no one's going to remember the mistakes. They're going to be like, did you see her, or do you see him, or right? And I would add to that too, it's like, if you keep making the same mistake, and like when I was a teenager, I remember I kept avoiding using my left foot at a certain point, and would go to use the outside of my right, and it would drive some of my coaches crazy, right? If I keep doing that and my coach keeps suggesting, hey, make the change, use your left, train your left, right? Work on it, improve that, because here are all the reasons why. And, maybe that could have been more communicated so that I could have really understood it in a way that I could understand it to make the change. But if you keep making the mistake over and over again, well, that's missing the opportunity to learn. It's missing like the learning and the growth inside of the mistake. So
that's the perfect thing for anyone wanting to overcome mistakes. Is one, let's categorize the mistakes. There's mistakes that just happen. The best players in the world do them. You're playing a sport that's chaotic and things happen.
Yeah.
Nothing's perfect in life. It's just how it is. And then there's other mistakes that are actually really good information. So the left foot thing, that mistake kept happening. If it's a mistake that keeps happening multiple times, there's really valuable information in that, which is, there's something I need to work on here. And that's fantastic. So you're like, cool, I'll go and just practice. It's in my control. I can now change this. Thank you for the information. That's taking feedback from the world, from what happens, from what is, taking feedback from what is, which is, this mistake keeps happening. Get curious about it, non-judgmentally curious, and say, what can I do to change that? And journal it a little bit about it, ask your coach, whatever it is, and then go and just nail that down until it's not it doesn't happen anymore.
100%. But that's the distinction that I don't think I fully understood when I was younger, that I can do something about it, because there was a point before I had a big mindset shift where I actually thought that like certain players were gifted from birth with certain skills. Like, it seems so trivial now, right? But it was like, oh, she's amazing with her technical skill. I'll never get to that point because she's just that good and she's always been that good. That's not true. She earned that.
Yeah, and if you look at any great player, they earn it. Like, what's your perspective on that, Reese?
Yeah, I think that was something that was super like big to realize. Like, she's not amazing because it was like a God-gifted ability. Like, she's amazing because she goes before practice and she trains on her own and she goes on runs and so once I like thought about that, it was really helpful because I was like, I can do that. I was like, I can go train that. I can try and do what she's doing. And that was a big help.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's so good. Yeah, it's in our hands.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it's actually quite the opposite. A lot of the best players, some of the greatest that have ever existed, weren't actually very good. I think Michael Jordan got dropped from his college team. Like, people, like the best players. So it's like, you can do big things. I think Carly Lloyd spoke about, she got dropped from her under 20s team or something.
With the national team.
Yeah, I heard it in a podcast, and that was maybe some adversity that made her level up. And now she's one of the greatest. So it's all in her. It's all the hard work that they put in, and that's a choice.
Yeah,
choice. It's really good. So there's the hard work that you put in from self-coaching, but there's also, I think, getting the right people in your corner in your life. And some of us are lucky enough to be born into families that have parents that push work ethic and push and just they push you in the right way. And then some of us maybe don't have that. So it's important to get the right people in our corner. Now, one thing Jen and I want to, really work to help shift is just the coaches have such a big influence on a player's not only level and not only abilities and talents and growth, but on their mental and emotional fulfillment, happiness, joy. And I think there's this culture where there's and I get it. It's like a push them and motivate them in a certain style that it actually causes a negative impact on the person's self-esteem. We've all had coaches like that. I think in our careers, we've had coaches who try to do what they think is best to push you to become a better player, but it actually, maybe in the moment it's like, it pushes you, but long term it actually degrades you, and it actually damages your esteem, your confidence. And in the long term, if they keep doing that to all their players, they're gonna have a team of scared like prisoners rather than a team of absolute confident leaders. And that's the difference between a great coach. A great coach can build leaders, a bunch of great leaders, and a crappy coach builds a bunch of followers because they're the boss,
almost like fearful followers.
Yeah. So
of course that's an extreme. There's like the full spectrum of what is out there.
Yeah, there's the in-betweens
that we're very like we care so much, and
no one's perfect.
Yeah.
But from a player's perspective, Reese, what style of coaching do you love to be coached by the most?
I think like a supportive, like celebrative coaching. So if you have a really good game, they notice that and they'll tell you after the game. Like I've had my club coach and high school coach have both talked to me after games, and that is so beneficial because it's like a positive motivator, because then I'm like, oh, now like I have this confidence that to do well in the next game because they gave me this confidence. And instead of like your coach just not celebrating the good things and focusing on the bad things and telling you the bad things you did after the game, and then you have a negative motivator that's like, well, I have to do good in the next game or else they're going to get more mad at me.
Yeah. And
it's like, and that's operating more out of like necessity. I have to, not like creativity. I get to. And I love what you said about celebrating the good, because I think when coaches do that, it teaches our young kids, parents, everyone, that like that's an option. You can't like we can celebrate the good, and let's like encourage more of what I just saw. Like encourage this young person to keep doing that, to keep practicing that,
because what gets rewarded gets repeated. What gets celebrated will get repeated. It's like with any of us, we all operate from action. To we get what feedback did we get, we'll keep doing that. So what gets rewarded gets repeated, right? So you love being coached by someone who is celebrative, like celebrates you when you do well. Anything else? They're supportive, you said. Anything else?
I guess like a certain extent of disciplined, because I've had coaches that are very like fun and they make everything super fun, but I don't learn anything and I don't like feel like I'm getting better, and that can be a little stressful. So when they have like, they are hard on you, but when they say, like when they communicate that they're being hard on you because they want you to get better, instead of just being hard on you and you're like, did I do something wrong? Like, am I not good enough? Like, it has to be communicated. But
like tough love, you want to be held to a great standard, right? Because they Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I believe in you so much. I know what you're capable of. And because of that, and because I know you've typically, I hope, hopefully,
Communication.
hopefully the coach and the athlete have had a conversation about the fact that, like, I do want to be held to a high standard, coach. Please help me do that. So because you've told me that, athlete, like, I want to share these things with you because I know what you're capable of.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's a totally different approach from like, you should have done this. Be better. And like yelling at you in front of the whole team.
Yeah, which is quite degrading. Yeah. Yeah. So and I guess if and maybe for some people that's needed. I don't know. Like there's all different approaches, and it's tough for a coach because there's so many different personalities in a team. Some of half the team might listen to that supportive stuff, and the other people might just not listen, and they just get frustrated, like, just do the damn thing, whatever it is. So essentially supportive, a disciplined style, maybe communicative, and all that. So what style of coaching do you think gets the most out of players, elicits the best performance, and gives players the most confidence in the long run?
I think kind of all three qualities that I just said. And then also like being like actually coaching, because I've had coaches who just like when you make a mistake or you don't, like one game I think I didn't like open up the right way or something, and I just get yelled at instead of like explaining why, because I got yelled at, but then I was like, I still don't understand what I'm supposed to do. So it's just like so stressful when you're trying to play a game and you don't understand what you're supposed to do, and you know you're going to get yelled at. But so actually like taking the time to explain and like coach, I think that gets the most out of your players, and then they feel comfortable like asking questions and like actually wanting to become better players, and then like they have more confidence because of that.
Yeah. And that's amazing how common that is. And again, I think coaches are doing the best they can, but they forget the kids are, if you give them feedback, don't do that, you got to add to that what to do instead. Tell them what to do, coach them.
Totally. And in my personal opinion, and I'll think about this more to see how I might adjust this over time if I will. But I mean, once you get to the game, we're in the game.
Yeah.
Up to that point, coach, player, you've had your opportunity to prepare. Whatever happens in the game, if there's an issue, resolve it at halftime, communicate it, right? But otherwise, more or less, like, let the kids play. It's not a time when you can really scream at them because you can't provide the why. And then you get the kid, depending on the athlete, it might really affect them. So I had a coach, a club coach, amazing man. And that's how he was. He was like, I don't yell at my kids during the game. I let them play. I let them have fun. We'll adjust anything that needs to be adjusted at the half in practice, but otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a boxing coach who was my first boxing coach. He was like, because he would get anxious and nervous before the fight, and he was in the change rooms going, remember to do this, and doing all this stuff, and it's like, relax, dude, relax. I can't remember all these things. I'm about to go out, and it's like, what's done, what's trained is in my nervous system. That's what's going to come out because you're not really thinking, you're in the flow state.
You were really good at that.
When my second coach, he was like, they're so chill. He just kind of leave you on your own, and he's like, it was like no, so he was super. He was just like calm, and it was like this. He's just cool, calm, and collected. And then if there was an issue, he would just take some notes and bring it to to training and resolve it at practice. That's what practice is for.
I love that.
So anyway, Reese, what we just want to ask you a few more questions, and this is just for just for the kids out there. If you were giving soccer advice to your 12-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Train on your own, because I didn't start training on my own till like a year or two ago, and it completely like changed my like skill set, because in practice you only get to like individually work on something for like 5 minutes, and then other than that it's the whole team is working on it. So it is so important to train on your own. And I feel like I said something else in the questions that I don't remember.
You mentioned something about not giving up because, you know, everything's going to.
Yeah, probably just like don't give up, because like eventually I guess like my 12-year-old self would get to where I am now, and it would just be like a new player kind of.
Yeah, cool. And for any young players listening, they're really motivated and they have the goal of making it to varsity, like yourself, to playing varsity soccer. What advice would you give them?
Have a good attitude and be coachable. And I understand not everyone's like happy all the time, but
No.
you can have a good attitude all the time. You don't have to be happy all the time, but you can have like just a positive like outlook. And so all my coaches have like all stressed having good attitude, being coachable, and then hustling. Because if you are like the worst player on the field, but you work your butt off, like that's noticed and it is like rewarded from my experience. So
Yeah, so hard work and a good attitude. And just quickly, what are some things people could, some young kids could focus on to keep a good attitude? What do you think? Just what do you do?
um well, I just like at tryouts usually, or like on my teams at practice, I'll just like smile and like you can say hi to everyone. And when everyone's smiling back at you, it's like makes you have a better, like an even better attitude. So if you like initiate, like if you smile at someone, they're gonna smile back. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty easy to like get a good like
Give
morale.
good energy. Yeah, it's like give good energy, you'll get it back, sort of thing. Cool. Love that. Love that. And last question, if you were giving life advice, so beyond soccer, life advice to your 12-year-old self, you're 17 now, 12-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Be like a forgiving person, because it's so exhausting to like try and hold on to hate or um like dislike or like grudges. And so it's way easier to just like move on, like
Yeah.
forgive, and just like move to the next thing, because there's a lot more to focus on. And yeah, just like work hard. I don't know.
Really, really good. And I know you mentioned something about like people who judge you, like I suppose it's about I remember you saying a while back how you, like, it's in your control who we hang around, and when there's people who judge you or judge you for having dreams, or judge you for or just sort of maybe it's just their own insecurities are coming on around you, then just sort of, you're saying, just forgive them, don't hold the grudges, but don't stay around it,
Yeah,
because maybe a little bit toxic and it's like they're not worth your time. So just let them do their thing and you just focus on your thing.
exactly. Yeah.
Love that. Cool.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, we're all on our own growth journey. We're all, maturing even more in our own ways. So I really just really resonate with your perspective, because like it also, I think in my experience too, it's helped me to have even more compassion for other people, because hey, while they might be not so advanced in one area, like I'm not so advanced in another area, so we're just all in it together in many ways, but with healthy boundaries. I love what you said too about it's okay, other people can be where they're at, but I can choose to spend my time elsewhere.
Yeah. And one thing you said, Reese, a while back, which was or in your answer, was actually like sad people hurt people, and that's such a quote, hurting people hurt other people, and you said cut them some slack and be a good person to everyone, because yeah, it's super exhausting for you to hold on to the grudges and dislike someone, and it's also, yeah, so it's like forgive them, and just focus on yourself. But that thing, for you to have that as a 17-year-old to say, cut them some slack, that's a huge credit to your parents and you've clearly people who have sort of raised you. But that's the sort of beliefs that will change the world for the better.
Yeah,
obviously the
for
world's
sure.
in crazy times,
Yeah.
probably all the time, but especially now. And
it's a huge credit to you and like who you are and who you're choosing to be and become more of. And yeah, it has been such an honor to get to know you. Like, first of all, just meet you officially, and then to like learn about you. And I see so many similarities in just like shifts you've made and actions you're taking, like even just the work rate thing. Like, no matter what, you can always control your work rate, and that will, coaches will see that, college coaches will see that, your teammates will respect that. You know that at the end of a game, at the end of a game, like you can feel satisfied with that, most importantly. So I'm just so inspired by you and so grateful that you shared your time with us.
Yeah, super grateful to have you on, and super honored to have got to get to know you a bit and work with you. And yeah, thank you so much. And where can our listeners find or follow you and your career if they wanted to, if you do that sort of thing?
Well, my Instagram has some things, but that's just Reese Alexis with 2 S's at the end.
Reese Alexis, or we'll post that in the notes after. Yep.
And yeah, that's kind of the only place.
Cool.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, some people are into posting
all the things, and some people are fully off it. If it was up to me, I wouldn't be on any social media or anything. It's
I don't
a little too much for me, but yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on today, Reese. We really appreciate it. And yeah, it was so good having you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So you have an awesome weekend.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.